Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you have construction needs? Maybe you want to get a roof fix. Maybe you want a pergola. Check out K&H Construction. They're a local company out of Waxahachie. Chris Helms, he'll take care of you. Let him know DV LeBron sent you. Today, my very special guest is the Gutter Gospel author and my brother-in-arms, a veteran of the Air Force, Mike Smith. How you doing, brother?
Well, I'm doing good, DV. Lots of things are happening in my life these days, keeping me busy. But yeah, whenever you're ready to dig into it, we can start from the beginning and work our way through it.
I love that. And I read and saw some of your stuff and your story. And my show I love putting on my brothers and sisters in arms because we have a story to tell. And you have one heck of a story to tell. So much that you wrote a book and you're looking to get into a talking thing. You're looking at some Netflix things. The story has to be told. So let's just start from the beginning. How did it start off for Mike growing up?
Yes, sir. I'll just go right. I was born in Aberdeen, South Dakota. I only lived there 3 years. My dad was the manager of the JCPenney clothing store. And as you guys all know by now, Amazon put all those guys out of business pretty much. But back in the day, I'm 60 years old. So I was there during the mid 60s and didn't really remember much about it. My brother told me later in life that my dad tried to commit suicide when I was 2 years old. So that's about the only thing I really took from being in Aberdeen. So he got transferred after there to go to Sauk Center, Minnesota, which is right in the central part of the state. A lot of lakes. I had a lot of friends there. And yeah, he was doing that. But then the problem with my dad is that he had the mental illness and the alcohol addiction, just like I did. And he'd take us fishing, though. He was a great guy. He never got violent with us or anything. What happened to him, though, was that when I was just 12, my dad got fired from that JCPenney manager's role because he was liking to drink more than go to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after that, he was out of options, and I have 4 siblings. So he's got 5 kids at home to feed and a wife to support. So they had their savings pretty much back in the day. This was a lot of money to be able to put together to go up and start their own clothing store in Barnesville, Minnesota. So this is over the Christmas break when I'm 12 years old, like I said, and I found it really hard to adjust in Barnesville because I had all my friends in Sauk, and this was like a slap in the face saying, okay, I don't know anybody here. And I only had one friend in high school when that started, in 7th grade, and I got in with him and we started drinking and smoking weed together.
So your dad's demons were getting to him after this JC Penny fire. It actually sped up, but the worst part about it is that his demons transferred to you.
Yes, sir. Correct. Exactly, DV. And so then fast forward from 12 years of age to 15 years of age, and we talked about this a little bit before we came on about how he passed away of a massive heart attack. And that led me to my first suicide attempt, which I journal about in my autobiography. And before we go too far, I should mention you guys can pick that up on the bottom of my homepage. I put it all together there. It got published out with Brooklyn Publishers in New York in January. And I always say this about the book. It took me 30 years to write it and 60 years to live it. I was always journaling for some reason going through my life, but put it all together. And like I said, it's up there now. And there's sample chapters.
I definitely plan on jumping into that book because that is definitely like you put your story and your life into that one. So we're definitely going to go into that one. But now the things that led to it, now you're a teenager, you're rebelling, you decided you wanted to end it because you got to such a low point. And I recognize that because after my father died right before my 14th birthday, I felt so alone. Like I felt like it's weird because it's your security.
Yeah.
Your dad is your security. Like your dad's the biggest, baddest dude in your brain when you're growing up. It's nothing really scares you because Pop is there. And then dad goes. And then even as a grown, almost 50-year-old man, I still feel that sense of loss, that sense of
Right.
I'm a man, I'm a war vet, I've been through the world and done all kinds of stuff. I still feel that sense of loss of security so many years later. You felt that
Yeah.
as a kid, you
Yeah.
went down this road of suicide. What happened?
Yeah. I actually loaded up a car on my buddies, and we were all intoxicated drinking at the house while my mom was now trying to keep this clothing store going that we started. And long story short, I was practicing doing this. I was that depressed, which was taking her car out into the countryside and hitting a car to like 100 miles an hour with blind spots coming from both sides. And that's the way I wanted to kill myself. So what happened on the suicide attempt that everybody knew about was I loaded up all these guys in the car when we were intoxicated, saying, "Hey guys, I got something really fun to try. You want to join me? I just need a car to drive." So long story short, they thought, well, yeah, this is going to be an experience. So they all got loaded up in the car. When I pulled the stunt with all those guys in it, I wasn't used to having people in the car with me when I hit the highway at now 100 miles an hour. And so everybody just flew around and landed in my lap when we hit and lost control of the car and rolled it and everything else. And then that was pretty much the end of all friends in high school, because it was like, this dude's just so crazy, man. They wanted nothing to do with me after they were well aware of what I could have did to them and everybody else.
Did
God knows I hurt.
did they catch on that you were trying to do that, or was it just
Not
they
until
think
it
it was a
was
fun
too late.
moment?
Yeah, not until it was too late. And I was hell bent on killing them all myself, and didn't care at that point. I was that low to think, to even have that mindset. I look back on it now and I'm just like, God, thank you so much for sparing my life, because I had a second suicide attempt way later in life too. But it's just one of those things that I don't know if you can see this on my shirt, but it says 22 veterans per day. And that represents the amount of vets that take their own life. So I'm an advocate these days for that. I get these shirts made out in Virginia through Custom Ink. And vets are always stopping me. Other people on the street are always stopping me, say, "Hey, I've heard about your story and stuff." It's just uh, awareness thing that I'm involved with. But
You went as you had this event, and it's ugly to even talk about, but it happened to you, and it was how you dealt with stuff. So now you get past that. When did what happened next? How bad did this journey get before you decided to get into the Air Force?
it got really bad. Trying to just manage my way through high school, finish that up. But basically, the teachers just graduated me because my grades were so poor. They just wanted me out of the school. And I tried college for a year, flunked out of that. So I joined the Air Force. And what happened in the military was I ran into a bunch of guys that reminded me of my buddy in high school that liked to party. We were all smoking weed in the Air Force, and we talked about before we taped here is to say that was during the Reagan administration, of course, in the 80s. And that's when Nancy had her big war on drugs, zero tolerance policy, which you look back on it now and laugh because it's so legal and everywhere these days. But
Yeah.
back then it wasn't. It was a taboo thing. And so there was 12 of us that got booted. What happened with that was there was a guy that came on base one night that we had got high with one time, and he was going to sell a pot to an undercover cop. And when they busted him, he just named names of everybody else to try and lighten his sentence before they threw him out too.
Wow.
I got swept up in that. We were called the Dirty Dozen.
Wow.
But
so you didn't even get a chance to you didn't really get a chance to start this new life, because the military was it was the start of a new life for me. Gangs, drugs, all kinds of stuff that came to a screeching halt when I got into the military. And I understood that, and they made it very clear about the zero tolerance. We had people who got kicked out on that. And so I had made a choice where, you know, if I didn't change my life, things were going to go very poorly for me. So I had made that decision and I was sticking to it. And so but I remember that being a whole start of my life. My life is completely different because of it. So you got
Yes.
to start this new life and then just got into the pretty much the same things you left behind and
Right.
didn't even get to experience the change.
I did for a little while, I should say that, after basic, of course, and schooling. That was all down in San Antonio. And then after that, I wound up going to Shepherd to get my permanent duty up in Wichita Falls, Texas, which I know you're close to. And a lot of tornadoes would come through there, obviously. They called it Tornado Alley. But I was I was in there 2.5 years roughly before they found out what we were up to and booted us. And I enjoyed it, but in life, you talk about getting hard. It got really hard after that because now I got that stigma of being an ex-military guy with the drug charge on my rap sheet, and of course, it's on your DD 214. I
Was
got a
it a
medical.
bad conduct? Was it bad conduct discharge, or did they give you a dishonorable?
They gave me a medical under honorable condition, is what it says on my DD 214.
Well, that's a whole
So
lot better than the thing, but
yeah,
it still sucks.
yeah, it does. So I moved back to Fargo Moorhead. That's where I live now, out in West Fargo. But landed in Moorhead, Minnesota. Ran into a buddy of mine that I'd met that one year in college that was my pot supplier when I was in college. And of course, so that led me into the saying, hey, let's get our own house together. We can grow this high grade pot because I had seeds from the military, right? And it was like, so we did that. Donnie is his name, Don Matthews. He's a 5th degree Taekwondo black belt guy, ex-Marine. So Donnie and I were really cool together. He trained me back then to get into the best shape I've ever been in my life. And, I didn't get trained in Taekwondo, but we would just work out all the time like demons. And they had a deal back then where if you were putting janitor hours at the health club, they give you a free membership. So Donnie and I were doing that. And, but one day my dad, this is now 8 years past him passing away, that I had a manic break, my first manic break in my life. And I've had a few that he appeared to me in broad daylight. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't on anything, saying, what a pathetic life I have, and go blow your effing head off with the shotgun that we used to go pheasant hunting with. It was in my bedroom. And I was just battling it, trying to resist it, this, that, and the other thing. And
That wasn't your dad. That wasn't your dad.
that was a demon. And but it looked like him, it talked like him, you name it. And it was very real and very terrifying. So that's in my first sample chapter that I write about on my website. If you guys want to go there, it's called Catch My Fall or something to that effect. Then the second one is even darker, but in the sample chapters where I toured hell for 3 straight days in a padded cell after this 88 episode. That was in Thanksgiving of 99, right before it. But yeah, it's just so many different stories to tell. I went from all of this in my past to living in 2 different homeless shelters in the military. I got civil commitments placed on me, both in North Dakota and Minnesota. This is in 2019. And then my doctor saw me in jail. I'd been arrested for calling 911 too many times when I had another manic break. And
so you're bipolar.
Yeah, I'm bipolar. So they arrested me and put me in jail, which was the worst part to be in. I should have been up at the VA on a psych, and I've been up there too before a few times.
Did you know you were bipolar like this? Because
it was yeah, I was undiagnosed for several years, DV. That's the truth. It was like from that episode in 88 all the way up and through the years into 99, I wasn't on any medications because I didn't know what I was even dealing with until I really broke in 99 in that padded cell. That, if you read that, what I did was I kept that unedited so you could see the raw fear and truth that those 2 episodes had on my life and what an impact they both had on my life. And
did you go to the VA to get help? Did at any time did you go to the VA when you found, because you knew something was wrong with you? You figured it out at some point and you said, I need help. How did that start?
It started after 99. After I was cycling so severely, I toured hell for 3 straight days in a padded cell and in a straitjacket.
Now you've mentioned that. What does that mean? What does toward hell mean? What was that experience?
All of what, if you read the Bible, I know you do, you're a believer. And if you ever go through Luke 16 about the rich man and Lazarus being in hell, that's what I experienced in that state of mind for 3 straight days. And coming out of it about 2-3 days later, there's this nurse. She came into my room and she said, hi, Mike, my name is Nurse Amy. And I just wanted to share something with you. When you were coming out of that state of mind in that cell, we saw you and your eyes looked like a scared animal. They were just as big as saucers. You looked like a cornered animal. And it was just like, it was that bad. And but like I said, there was just so much more to my life that really led me down a dark road for many years.
You were in this tunnel, and that's what I call it, the tunnel, because I went through a tunnel when I got back, and you were in this tunnel. You're padded rooms, you're torn hell, you're figuring out you're bipolar, and then on top of this, you're getting locked up. You're getting a criminal record, even albeit light, but still a criminal record. You're living in these homeless shelters. At some point, you saw light. You had to see light at some point because it's so much darkness. At some point, there has to be light. When did you see that? When did you see that?
Yeah. I'll answer it for you. There was 2 things. There was 3 things actually that carried me through the dark times. The first one, I was listening to this Christian talk show back in the day called the Minirth Meyer Clinic. And one of the doctors said to the other one, I've got 7 kids in my family. And one of them is the second youngest is bipolar. And that's where I rank in the family. And he said, all my other kids are either doctors or lawyers or attorney or whatever. So they're all successful in their own field is the point. But he goes, one day I bet that little guy with bipolar is going to outshine the rest of them by far. And I'll remember that was one that gave me hope during the dark times. And then when I was institutionalized out in this Jamestown, North Dakota, is where the state hospital, which is 100 miles from here, is. What they would do, DV, is when I was out there, they would put me in chains in the back of a paddy wagon and drive me every week to Fargo to stand in front of a judge to beg for my freedoms, and I was denied 5 straight weeks. So I'm institutionalized. This is in 2019, and this answers your question too. I was just crying out to God, saying, looking back on my life, God, why did I have to go through all this BS? And what's the point of it? I was just in tears, literally. And I look up and there's this plaque on the wall that says, you've been given this life because you're strong enough to live it. And that helped me carry on. That gave me my second ray of hope. And my third one, which I'll mention now, is after they finally released me from the state institution, they put me in my second homeless shelter here in town called Project Heart. We had veterans upstairs and the criminals downstairs, and we would eat all of our meals together. So now I'm at my lowest point. I've gone through all that stuff that we talked about here in my life, and I'm sitting there after just having breakfast one morning, and this lady comes up and says, Mike, you got some mail. And I was thinking to myself, man, who would be mailing me? I don't even have anybody in my life anymore. And what happened was I opened up the mail and there was 2 big checks in there for 100% service connection from the military with all my back pay. I can see you smiling because you know how much that means to veterans, right? Mm-hmm. And so these days, DV, what I did was I packed up all my stuff and got out of there as fast as I could.
Yeah.
Went out and bought myself a new twin home, and life is much better these days from going to my lowest point, and that's what I talk about on all these shows. I offer people hope and say, if Mike can survive it, 2 suicide attempts and all the rest of the stuff, there's hope for you too.
Now, I
And
got a
that,
question though, because they're in this story. There's two things that I haven't heard, and I know that one of them is that you did manage to get married. So
yeah,
there was a woman in your life, and then the other thing is in this whole story, you haven't told me about did your family did you have any family that along the way tried to help you in this journey?
I'm married. The marriage is very strained. We've been together for 36 years because of everything I had to go through.
I
When I got
imagine.
when I got out of here, the first homeless shelter, that's when she was waiting for me with 3 or 4 police cars when I finally did get back to Fargo and had me arrested. That's how I ended up in jail. Yeah, it's a very strained relationship. But anyway, and they all are because of what I've gone through. People gave up on me and threw me away. And there's a chapter in
I'm
the book
sorry, buddy.
I'd really love for people to read that's on page 70 when you scroll down to it, called Sea of Tears, the parable of the muddy penny. And when you read that chapter, you're going to see how Jesus appeared to me in a dream one night and basically gave me my mission for what I'm doing these days, which is share my story, be honest about it, be raw about it. On a lot of these shows I talk, I get emotional going back and reliving it all during certain parts of the conversation. But I look at it now like God's blessed me so much. It's my mission now to not only be an advocate for mental health, but also to be an advocate for veterans, that not just veterans, but everybody that has those mental health issues that are suicidal. I have some help links up on my website that are the hotlines for suicide attempts, that hotline, as well as the Billy Graham prayer line, and trying to do my part to the best of my ability to say, don't give up on life, man. It might
Mike,
have some turns. Yeah.
and I'm sorry to interrupt because, and that's one of the lines that I like to give whenever I'm talking this subject is don't give up. When you give up and you decide life and you take life away, without life, there's no opportunity to make it better. You have to
Right.
give yourself, there has to be life. And I understand that if you're saved, you're good and you're with Christ. I get that part. But an opportunity here to live his purpose ends when life ends. You don't get to live his purpose out here.
Right.
And so keep going. Don't give up. But my question for you was when we all had that moment, especially I had it. I think all of us at the very bottom, we have that moment where we're at our worst. We're on our knees. There's tears. It's the worst possible spot that we're in. And we say, God, please, God. And when did that happen for you? And how did God come into your life?
God came in, even despite the fact when I was seeing that plaque in the institution, that was probably the biggest turning point, because the reason I'm referencing that again is because I was at my lowest point then. And I remember thinking so clearly to God to just explain it to me. But what it did was, after going through that, it gave me a very empathetic heart, having to survive all that. And that's really where it goes from. That's the title of my book, is The Gutter Gospel, The Road to Redemption. And I firmly believe that everybody's got that road to redemption where they go through their trials. That's what the gutter gospel's in reference to. We've all been through the gutter, even during, maybe it was going through puberty, just trying to grow up, the trials in life, you name it. Everybody's been down and out. I probably am a poster child for being the most down and out.
Yeah.
But well, that's kind of why God gave me that life and gave me that plaque to look at and reiterate that message when I am on these shows. And I love doing it because it really resonates with people. And I'll share this with you guys too. I haven't mentioned that if you are to that point, I hand out my business email for them to reach out to me, and then I call them and or just messaging back on email or whatever they prefer. And that email is mike@theguttergospel.com if they want to get a hold of me and they feel like they can't talk to a therapist or anything else. If they want to talk to somebody who's been through the ringer, talk to me.
No, and you have been through the ringer. You have quite an amazing story of things that you've been through, and it goes into being undiagnosed. It goes into all the things that go with that, and not knowing what is going on in your brain, what's happening in there, and all the
Right.
stuff that you rolled through trying to figure that out. And but the great thing is that you found redemption, and you found redemption in Christ. And I say, get there, folks. I don't care how you get there. I prefer you get there with Christ. It works. It works. But I don't care how you get there. Just get there, folks. Any which way you can. Just don't give
Yeah.
up. Really.
Yeah, there's something else I can share with you guys too. I'd like to talk about, and that is that these days I'm involved in the jail chaplain ministry here in Fargo. They go into the jails and preach the gospel to the people that are incarcerated. So we have prayer there every Monday, and then there's small groups throughout every day of the week that I'm involved with through either the jail chaplains or other groups in town I like to at different churches, and I speak at those. God's given you a purpose in your life. I always say this, DV, that even if you're an identical twin with someone, you could be as different as night and day. So you've been given these unique talents and gifts. And if you ever read through The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren, I'll spoil the book for you. At the end, it talks about your reason and your purpose for being here is to go carry out the Great Commission. Preach the gospel. With all your trials you've been through, with whatever, God can use what the enemy had set the trap for you for destruction in your life. God can rescue you and make something positive and encouraging to other people out of it. So,
yeah, so he turns dull pennies into wealths of gold, and that's what he does. For me, obviously, it's always a great commission, but his purpose that he revealed to me about 8 years ago, he wanted me to be kind. He wanted to be humble. And he said, I will reward you if you're doing that. And I've been rewarded beyond measure. Everything is better. And you still have bad days, but everything is better. He has truly shown me his love. When I followed him, I said, okay, you want me to be kind and you want me to be humble. I'm going to do those two. And it's been one heck of a ride. And it sounds like he gave you a purpose. And what's the thing when I have other vets on the show is that we all come out of this tunnel and we want to help others. It's crazy how it affects so many of us that have been in the military, that we all get out of this tunnel, of this ugliness, and we're like, man, we got to help the world. We got to do something. Yeah. Somebody needs help. We got to do. It's just amazing how we all get that servant heart. Yeah,
you're exactly right. And I shared with you about the conference coming up in October. And after that, once that's over with, I'm going to be coming and starting my own podcast as a host. And I've been looking into that because, like you said, there are a lot of hurting people out there. And I think that's really what God's calling me to do, regardless of what outcome I have at the conference, to get it turned into a possible movie of some kind. But I'm looking forward to that event and helping people. That's why I just said what I did about handing out my personal business email. Reach out to me. Feel free to. I'm here to talk every day of the week except Sundays. I can always get back to you within a short amount of time.
Your story is just amazing, brother. And I'm sorry that you had to go through all the stuff. But as a believer, you know that there was a purpose behind it. And now you get to live that out. And as hard as that road was, there was a reason, and you know it now. And so now you help others. But again, you guys can reach him at his email. He's put it out. I have been scrolling his website. You'd be able to go over there and get his book, check it out. And I wish you the best with that thing that you're going to go do. Hopefully the book turns into something. And even if it doesn't, you going out and doing what you're doing is beautiful, brother. And I will keep you in prayer about your journey, man. Is there anything else you'd like to tell my audience?
There's one thing. I've got a donate now tab. If you guys like my ministry, it takes me time to spend all that time talking to individuals that hear me on the show. So you can donate any amount to that. I put the autobiography for sale on the bottom of the homepage for $7.99. $8 to read about a troubled life that God redeemed and put on the road to redemption is, like I said. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And I just am blessed to be in the position I am these days. And I would say that you are as well, DV, just in hearing a little bit of your story, because that's such a tough thing on kids of any age to lose a parent, especially at a young age. I feel it all the time, and that is such a loss. And I was closer to my dad than my mom. She passed away cancer in 2009. But like you said, your dad's your hero. He's your everything when you're a boy growing up. And I believe the same is true for girls with their moms or dads. But yeah, it's not an easy road, but it turned out well in the end. So that's all great. All honor goes to God.
And the great thing is that it's not finished, Mike. It's not finished. It's not finished at all. Sir. All right, my brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Can you stick around real quick after?
Yeah, that's fine.